If you want to make fabulous gluten-free food in your kitchen, you need to learn a little bit about the different gluten-free flours available. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use a gluten-free flour blend. This is the final video in my 12-part series of how to use gluten-free flour. I've talked about 21 different ingredients, flours, starches, and binders, all used in gluten-free baking, so I thought I would finish it off with how to use a gluten-free flour blend for best results. So I'm going to talk about 4 different things: the difference between a blend and a mix, store-bought versus homemade, a quick refresher on the role of flour in baking, and how to use a gluten-free flour blend to give you the best results. So first, the difference between a blend and a mix. I think it is too late. Those two terms are used synonymously, and I do it myself. But just to be aware that a blend in gluten-free flour, gluten-free baking, we always use a combination of different flours and starches to achieve what we would have been able to get with wheat flour. So it's a blend of different ingredients. So one of my resources is this table. I'll put a link to it below. It's 11 recipes for different gluten-free flour blends. So it's just a combination of flour and starch that you would use in cooking instead of wheat flour. An actual flour mix, like you buy at the store, you can buy a pancake mix or a cupcake mix. So a mix typically has other ingredients that we use in baking, like salt, baking powder, baking soda. It can have, sort of more manufacturer type ingredients like dehydrated egg or flavors or whatever. So that's what a mix is. So you don't want to be using a mix when you're cooking. A mix is for whatever it was specifically designed for. And so just be aware of that. And that's why it might not work in for other uses outside of what it was actually designed for. Okay, store-bought versus homemade. So I make my own gluten-free flour. You don't have to, you can buy them at the store. And the names are things like all-purpose, cup for cup, and it makes you think that it's a single replacement. So there really is no single replacement. So one is not better than the other, making homemade or buying it. It's just that to get the best results, you want to know what is in your blend. So when you buy a flour blend, or even when you make it, it might have a gum in it, a binder. And that's an important point to know. If that's what your recipe also calls for, you could be adding too much. So if you have a flour blend that you like, then that's fine. And you can still use some of the points that I'm going to talk about. You can still use to adjust your baking for different recipes to perfect recipes that you like in your kitchen. A homemade flour blend gives you a few more choices in refining and perfecting your recipes. If you're a super taster and there's things that you're still not quite 100% happy with, you can adjust. So another table that I have is what I call my downloadable flour guide. And it's got 8 different flours and starches, sort of the ones that I started with and use the most commonly. And I'll put a link to that below. So there's 2 sides to it. And I just have that printed in my kitchen, hanging in a cupboard. And so then it tells you if you use 30%, more than 30% of a certain flour, it might make your baking crumbly, or too much starch, it might make it gritty, or whatever. So there's lots of things to learn, but if you're, as you advance and learn more, you can adjust to your liking. So I'll put those resources below. A refresher on the role of flour. So we use flour in the kitchen for 3 different things: to thicken soups and stews, gravies, to coat meat and vegetables, and the third biggest thing is to create structure with gluten-free baked goods. So again, just remember that as you're going. You can use a flour blend for some of those purposes, but typically you would use a single ingredient if you're making coating or thickening soups or stews. You would just use a single flour or starch. For creating structure, then you can use anything. So in this series, we've gone through 21 different ingredients of flours, starches, and binders. So there's lots of things to learn. Okay, and finally, how to use a gluten-free flour blend to get the best results in your kitchen. So the best way to learn is by baking and practicing. So there's two ways that you can do it, and I've actually repeated this, many times in other videos. My most common way that I do it is I have a reliable blend that I like, and so say if I'm making my banana muffins, that's the recipe I most commonly use, and it calls for 2 cups of flour. I'll substitute a portion of that flour with a new flour. So I've got my existing gluten-free flour blend, say 1.5 cups, and then I want to try something new, like I heard teff flour goes great with chocolate and mocha, and I want to add that to my muffins, so I'll add 1/2 cup of that other flour. So again, you want to be, maybe cautious. You could add 1/4 cup or even as little as 2 tablespoons, but that's a great way to learn. You've already got a pretty reliable recipe, and then you're just adding a little bit of a new ingredient to your recipe. So that's one way to do it, adding or substituting a percentage of the flour blend with something new. And the other way is to just make a new blend. So as I said, I'll provide that link to this table with 11 different gluten-free flour recipes. So you could try a blend that's a bit different from what you've had. And I certainly did that when I wanted to figure out cookies. So I made a completely different blend. I wasn't happy with how my cookies were turning out. Although in the end, I've got all kinds of different cookies with single flours, different combinations, and then this gluten-free flour, cookie flour mix that worked out really well for me. So again, that was just a new recipe that I wanted to work on the final result. So focus on the kinds of things that you want to make, what you're missing in your kitchen, and good luck. I hope you enjoy baking. So give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Let me know what else you'd like to see. I'm Cindy, the Everyday Gluten Free Gourmet, sharing tips and recipes from my kitchen for more everyday cooking in yours. Thanks for watching.